G'day, my name's Simon Byrne. I'm a Vmix producer based out of Canberra in Australia. I run two businesses. One's called Stream Out, and that's my streaming business. And that's been going for 10 or so years. And I also have another business called Think Project Design, and that's my event management and technical direction business for corporate productions. I've done a couple of videos for YouTube, and I've been pleasantly surprised at the interest that I've generated from them, and people obviously seem to like what I'm doing. So I thought I might put one out on my Vmix rig that I take to venues. So this would be, I guess, my number 2 rig. It's a rig that's sort of designed for, say, 2 to 4 cameras, 1 or 2 Vmix calls, that sort of thing. It's based around an Alienware laptop, just an i7. This particular laptop is running an RTX 2070, the laptop version obviously. The big thing when running Vmix with laptops, and the crippling factor for any GPU intensive operation, is heat management. So I've found that GPUs will often throttle their performance due to heat. And that's why I run it with a laptop cooling stand, which has got a couple of fans in it. And that just gets a lot of air moving around it, and that just makes the performance of the GPU quite stable. And because I'm running that, I've been pleasantly surprised at the performance of Vmix with this laptop. It sort of comes, fairly close to my desktop systems. My desktop systems will, of course, always outperform them, but it's not as if they're a long way different. Yes, the capacity is reduced, but it's not in a dramatic way. So, yeah. So that laptop is connected via Thunderbolt, and I have a Sonnet box down in here in this rack. This rack always travels with this system, and the whole idea of this rack is to speed up, pack down and set up. And this whole rig I can get set up in 25 minutes or so. But yeah, there's a Sonnet enclosure in there. That's got a DeckLink Duo, Blackmagic DeckLink Duo card. So that's a maximum of 4 ins, or 2 ins, 2 outs. And in addition to that, I've also got a Blackmagic Ultra Studio recorder in there, which you probably can't see. That gives me one more input. That gives me an HDMI input. So a really normal gig for me would be, say, 2 cameras and PowerPoint. So having that extra HDMI input on the Ultra Studio is really handy. So for audio, I've got this RME Fireface UFX Plus. Now this thing is a real powerhouse in terms of USB audio interfaces. It's got some insane amount of inputs, something like 96 or something, but it's got 12 analog inputs. But the main reason I use RME gear is because it's just so reliable. So I've got a fair bit of RME interfaces, and they're well known for their very high quality USB drivers. And that's the main reason I use them. It's just using gear that works and works consistently. The other benefit for RME interfaces is it comes with something called Total Mix Effects. And Total Mix Effects is their software-based mix engine. But by software-based, I mean all of the processing is done on the UFX Plus itself. You're not actually doing any of the software mixing on the Windows machine, so you're leaving all of your horsepower free and available to Vmix, and any mixing or routing that you're doing on board the UFX Plus. And Total Mix Effects is actually quite powerful. With Total Mix Effects, you can do multiple different mixes, and you can even route outputs back into inputs. So for example, if I wanted to route with the Windows output back into Vmix, I could do it with Total Mix Effects without having to use any of those VB cable softwares or other solutions that other people use. Over here we've got a Constellation, ATEM Constellation switcher. I use that for sort of venue switching or whenever I need more ins and outs. It doesn't get used much. This is a hyperdeck and I use that for all of my show records. I don't record on board Vmix. I like to have a dedicated record machine outside of Vmix to facilitate the recording. I just prefer the fact that it's a standalone recorder doing the job separate to Vmix, which frees up Vmix to use its resources towards streaming and other processes. Then I've got a Ubiquiti Edge Switch 16. This is the PoE version, and you'll see why I have the PoE version. Then some power distribution, and that just, as well as distribution, displays the current voltage and the amount of power that I'm consuming. Down the bottom we've got an Edge Router X, and the Edge Router X is for bringing in my internet feed, and then I've got my own local area network. And right down the bottom there is a Ubiquiti wireless access point, and that's so I can have my own Wi-Fi at any venue that I go to. Connected to the Vmix machine is an external monitor. These monitors are dirt cheap, and they can be Thunderbolt powered or run a separate power supply. In terms of performance, they're not amazing. Well, they're a long way off amazing, but they serve a job. And so what it means is it means I can move the audio mixer or the call manager or anything over to a second screen, which frees up my real estate on my main screen. And it just gives me a bit more space to do work. Now, in terms of controlling Vmix, I've got this TYST 1500 HD, I think they call it. And I use Joda Max's excellent central control software to interface this controller with Vmix. And in addition to that, I've also got a Stream Deck XL. And this one tends to be used for quickly routing things into slots and also comms for remote contributors. So on all of my jobs with remote contributors, I run a green room and what I call the stage. And I have push to talk buttons so that I can talk to the green room or talk to the stage. And then also I use the dynamic memories in Vmix so that I can quickly slot callers into various looks that I've got set up. And for audio monitoring, I've got the Audio Technica. What are these ones? These are the BPH-S1. These are fantastic, great value headsets. I've got several pairs of those. They're truly superb. And lastly, for controlling my PTZ cameras, I've got the Canon RC IP100 controller. And I use the Canon CRN 300 and 500 cameras. So if we wander around the back of this rack, and so I've got all the I/O on the back panel here, so that way I don't have to be going into the back of the rack and trying to find stuff. But we've got the internet connection, deck link cards, some audio ins, some ins to the ATEMs and so forth. And then coming out of the rack for the house audio, I've got a central loom which just breaks out into 2 ins and 2 outs. And once again, it's all about speed. I just have to run 1 cable to the audio guy rather than 4 cables and extra connections. And then in addition to that, most of you would be aware that Vmix has 2 outputs, and if you want more than 2 outputs, you use the full screen outputs. And I really don't like using those full screen outputs because quite often you can end up getting your mouse on the screen by accident and so on. So I've got one of these Magewell NDI Pro Converts. So that's NDI to HDMI. Once again, it's PoE powered. It gives me another HDMI output out of Vmix. It's really useful. In terms of internet connections, I always push for a house internet connection, but more and more I'm finding that I won't get it. I have a lot of government clients. I do work for Australian government departments such as Defence, Health, Agriculture and Fisheries, and a few others, and nearly always their networks are locked down and they will not give me access. And with all of these sort of hacking concerns, you sort of understand why. And so I bring one of my PepWave boxes to pretty much all of my jobs. And in this case, this PepWave has three 5G connections and one 4G connection, along with battery backup. And that it gives me enough internet connectivity nearly always for most of my jobs. And the other real benefit to that is quite often when you go to a venue, particularly a government venue, they'll give you access, but it'll take them an hour or two to sort it out. Whereas if I just bring my PepWave, I've got it, I'm ready to go, I can get up and running really quickly. And in terms of cameras, I mainly run with the Canon CRN 300s. I use the NDI HX output out of those. Used to have Bird Dog P200s, but I've changed over to the Canons. The Bird Dogs were full NDI, whereas these are NDI HX. But when I did testing, despite the fact that these are NDI HX, the images do look better and there is less latency in these than there is in the Bird Dogs. So that's my main cameras. I use the CRN 300s for my main cameras. I've got a 500 here, but I don't use that much at all. And if I need better cameras, I've got various cinematographer friends who will come with either their Sony FX6 or FX9, and they'll bring their nice lighting, and it'll be a two-man crew. But for these cameras, I've got these quick mount adapter plates, which you can see in there, and these really speed up setup and pack down. And I've made these various mounting solutions so I can put two cameras on one tripod with this, two cameras on a C-stand. I can mount a camera on a vertical truss, or I can mount a single camera on the top of a C-stand using a lighting stand receiver adapter arrangement. And so these give me the ability to just deploy cameras really quickly. And because I use NDI and they're PoE powered, I only need to run one cable. So that works exceptionally well. And so that'll probably do it for this video. Leave your comments down below, as they say. And apparently I should ask you to subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content. Apparently that makes a difference, although I don't know too much about YouTubing. But that'll probably do it. Yeah, my name's Simon Byrne from Think Project Design. If I can assist you in delivering an event, reach out and give me a call. Good on you. Thank you so much.